Gennady Golovkin defends his middleweight title tomorrow night against Martin Murray. Golovkin and his trainer Abel Sanchez claim that Murray will be the best opponent they faced so far. But most boxing fans don't really give Murray much of a chance. They think that it's going to be another easy night's work for Golovkin. Murray is one of the biggest opponents that Golovkin has faced so far. He's definitely a physically big middleweight, strong guy. Not a particularly big puncher, but he was still able to drop a small middleweight in Sergio Martinez a few times, even though I think, were those knockdowns even called? I'm sure some of them weren't. But nonetheless, Murray's a strong guy. He's technically fairly sound. He's nothing spectacular. He's just a big, strong middleweight who's competent. Whether or not he's going to be able to deal with Golovkin remains to be seen. You know, someone on Facebook posted an article, and the article asked the question, is Golovkin the new Mike Tyson, or today's version of Mike Tyson? Now, stylistically, no. Golovkin and Tyson are both pressure fighters, obviously, but the technique that Tyson used was quite different to Golovkin. Tyson used a lot more head movement. He came in a lot lower because he was shorter, a lot shorter than most of his opponents, whereas Golovkin tends to be the same kind of height, a similar height to most of his opponents. Tyson used a lot more head movement. He was more square on than Golovkin. Even though Golovkin does fight quite square on, Tyson was a lot more square on. Tyson was far more explosive than Golovkin. He was a much quicker starter. Golovkin tends to feel you out for the first round or so. Tyson would just fly out and he'd be straight on you, throwing absolute haymakers from the opening bell. With both hands, uppercuts, shots from all angles. Golovkin is a lot more measured than Mike Tyson was. Tyson was certainly a lot faster than Golovkin. Even though Golovkin's a middleweight, Tyson was a heavyweight, Tyson had much quicker hands than Golovkin. They're actually the same height. Golovkin, Tyson, both 5'10" or thereabouts. But Tyson, even though he was much heavier, was much faster, much more explosive. But I suppose people are looking at the aura of invincibility that Golovkin seems to have at the moment. The fear that he's creating in his division. But even when it comes to that, those of you who were around watching boxing in the mid to late 80s, you will remember that the aura of invincibility that Tyson had back then was like nothing you've ever seen before in sport, never mind just in boxing. Tyson was literally seen as invincible. Literally. Like, there were millions of people. I heard people say this stuff all the time, that Tyson could not be beaten in a fight, in the ring or out the ring. Not by a cage fighter or a martial artist. Nobody could beat Mike Tyson in a street fight. Nothing. There were millions of people who believed this about Tyson, that he was completely invincible in a one-on-one combat situation. That is how deep the aura of invincibility Mike Tyson had really was. People thought this guy was physically invincible in a one-on-one fight with anyone. Right? Golovkin is not at that type of level. Tyson was an intimidating character as well, because he was a bit of a bully outside the ring on a personal level. Certainly with people who he perceived to be, other fighters or potential opponents or people who thought themselves maybe as tough guys. Tyson was quite the bully. And Golovkin is the opposite. He comes across as a choir boy. He doesn't really have this intimidating personality. Tyson was a rough, tough kid from the Brownsville ghetto. And he had the swagger of a bad boy from the neighborhood. Whereas Golovkin just is this choir boy type character. It's only in the ring that he's intimidating. Outside the ring, he's really, very mild-mannered. So I can see what people are saying when they try and draw some parallels between Golovkin and Tyson, but really and truly, nah. And again, Golovkin's a middleweight, and because he's a middleweight, people still have this perception that if he moves up, there are people that could beat him or give him a lot of trouble. Whereas with Tyson, he was like the pinnacle of the whole of boxing. He was like the most intimidating character in the whole sport. And because he was a heavyweight, the perception was nobody can beat him. And no boxer, no man on earth could beat Tyson in a fight. That is what people were literally believing. Okay, I know people who weren't around in the Tyson era look back now and say that's ridiculous. But you had to be there at the time to understand, right? This is how people were thinking back then. And again, anyone who was around back then watching Tyson will corroborate what I'm saying. This is how deep the aura of invincibility Tyson had really was, and the intimidation factor that he had over most of his opponents. And the highlight reel, because Tyson's team were one of the first teams in boxing to put together a highlight reel and send out highlight reel tapes of his knockouts, KO reels of his knockouts to all the different news organizations. They were one of the first people to start doing that. And if you go back and watch Tyson's fights in their entirety, especially a lot of the longer fights, Bone Crusher Smith, Tony Tucker, James Tillis, Mitch Green, those kind of fights, he isn't as all-conquering and devastating as the Tyson mythology would have you believe. Tyson was beatable even in his prime, but people don't remember the fights in their entirety. They remember the dramatic moments, like when he finished off Pinklon Thomas, or when he finished off Larry Holmes, or when he finished off, what's he called now? Jesse Ferguson, or, they remember these kind of things. They remember when he finished off Frank Bruno. Tyson's finishes were so spectacular that that's what sticks in the mind. The four rounds or so against Pinklon Thomas before the finish, where Tyson wasn't looking very impressive, people don't remember that. The Tony Tucker fight, that's a blank spot in people's memories, that Tony Tucker fight. Even the Bone Crusher Smith fight, they just blame it on him holding, as if other heavyweights don't hold and couldn't have neutralized Tyson's offense with holding, like a Vladimir Klitschko or a Lennox Lewis or whatever. So, I'm not here trying to dissect Tyson too deeply, but I'm just trying to give you an overall impression of the aura of invincibility that surrounded him. Yes, it was irrational, but because of certain things, because Tyson was so explosive, because he was so powerful, because he was this intimidating character from the ghetto, because he was a heavyweight, he was obviously undefeated. His knockout reel was spectacular, probably the most spectacular knockout reel we've ever seen in heavyweight boxing, right? When Tyson let his punches fly, he was like nothing else you've ever seen. Very, very impressive with combinations and his hand speed and all that. So, yeah, I guess this is my convoluted and overly long way of saying that no, Mike Tyson isn't, or Gennady Golovkin isn't really the new Mike Tyson. I mean, there's some similarities there, but it's not the same. Golovkin is definitely still viewed as a mortal man. And if Martin Murray was to defeat Golovkin tomorrow night, there's certainly been bigger upsets than that. Tyson Douglas was a bigger upset than that. Even upsets like probably Lloyd Hunnigan beating Donald Curry would have been a bigger upset than that. Randolph Turpin beating Sugar Ray Robinson would have been a bigger upset than. There's loads of upsets out there which were bigger than Martin Murray beating Gennady Golovkin, if that indeed did happen. I don't anticipate it happening. I'm just going to put it right out there now. I don't anticipate Martin Murray beating Golovkin, but stranger things have happened in boxing. No question. Stranger things have happened. Drop your comments below. Let me know what you feel about this fight. Do you think Murray's got a chance? How do you see the fight playing out? Do you think he's going to stop Murray early, late? Some people seem to think that because Murray is a physically big and strong guy, because he's hungry, he's not a guy like Rubio or some of these other fighters who is maybe coming to the tail end of his career. Murray is still hungry and has that determination, and because of that, a lot of people seem to think he'll go some rounds in this fight. Maybe as far as 8, 9, 10 rounds. Some people even suggesting he might go the distance. Well, we'll have to wait and see, but I think Golovkin will probably stop him. I think he'll probably stop him. he does everything that Murray can do, but better, and he's got more power. So I can't see a way for Murray to win this fight, to be honest with you. Again, bigger upsets have happened, so it wouldn't shake me to my foundations if he did win. But just looking at it realistically, looking at it in terms of what's the most likely, probable outcome, I can't see past the Golovkin stoppage victory. So drop your comments below. Let me know how you feel. It's your boy Hatman. I'm out.